Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I just got back from Panama City Beach, Florida. That's where I grew up going as a kid, and I got with 3 of my buddies, and we just went down there for a couple of nights just to hang out, and wanted to show you this. One of my favorite things was we had a Bloody Mary before breakfast at this place called Andy's Flower Power. I looked up their website. They're not paying me to tell you this. I'm just telling you. I just wanted to show you. If you ever go to Panama City Beach and you want a great breakfast, go to Andy's Flower Power. My dad used to live down that way, and he told me about this place, and we went. And what I wasn't expecting is what we got. There was a saxophone player playing. So listen to this. I thought it was really cool. Now, if I have to, let me play that a little bit more. If I have to take this out of the video, I don't know if the copyright thing on YouTube will pick that up, but if I have to take it out, you can go watch it yourself in my Twitter feed. But I thought the saxophone player was excellent, and the food was great, and the Bloody Mary was great and needed. All right, now Friday I was on my way down there, but Friday John Deaton was on the on Fox Business with Charles Gasparino, and John Deaton hit a grand. Here's what he did. John Deaton hit a grand. It's the New York Yankees versus the Atlanta Braves, because the Atlanta Braves is where I'm from. Freddie Freeman's up. It's the bottom of the 9th. He needs a grand slam to win the World Series against the New York Yankees, and he hits a grand slam for the Atlanta Braves to beat the New York Yankees in the World Series. That's what John Deaton did. Great job on his part. My favorite part was the third clip, and these clips were put together. Anytime any of these guys go on Fox News, you need to go follow @Coining203, because he's really quick and good at getting these clips up. So he got this one for us. Let me hit the refresh to make sure. And by the way, after I play this clip for you, what I've done, because I think it's an appropriate time to do it, I've been putting out videos that string together all of the things that stink to high heaven about this SEC versus Ripple case, and also where it involves Ethereum and all the different people around Ethereum. And what I decided to do on this Sunday, I went back and I went through all of the videos I've put up over the last 8 months, and some of these videos are about as damning gets. What I did is I went and found the videos, only the videos that have been watched over 50,000 times on Twitter. So what this is SEC and Ethereum versus Ripple /XRP / the entire crypto innovation in the United States, because that's who it's against. It's SEC and Ethereum versus all those things. And this is going to be those greatest hits, only the hits. If they didn't get more than 50,000 views, and the reason I wanted to put all of these together, and I wanted to do it after this clip with John Deaton, is because a lot of people either weren't here or have forgotten or haven't. It's one thing to watch individual videos, but to put it all together puts it all in perspective. And so this would be kind of the equivalent of taking all the videos and putting them all in one place and then pouring gasoline on this fire so you can see not just smoke but fire. So that's what you'll see today. All right, so we start with John Deaton.
In a common enterprise with Ripple, it's absurdity, John.
And so what is your resolution? What would you like to see?
Well, right now we've asked the court permission to come into the case and intervene as de facto defendants, or in the alternative, to grant us amicus standing with participatory rights. Basically, what that means is to allow us to prove that the XRP that we purchased is not only not a security, we also didn't enter into a common enterprise with Ripple.
Right.
Because Ripple's went on record to say that they owe nothing to XRP holders. They have shareholders, and the SEC is clearly not acting on our behalf. So we just want to speak for ourselves.
You mentioned conflicts of interest. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. Jay Clayton was the head of the SEC that brought the case. A guy named Bill Hinman was then at the head of corporate finance for the SEC, who played a role, I guess, in the case. You believe that those two gentlemen, who, by the way, we've reached out for comment, they say no, they don't want to come on. So.
Yeah, they don't want to come on. They'll go on CNBC. Jay Clayton will go on CNBC, but he doesn't want to come anywhere where he actually has to answer any questions.
Just so you know, I've tried to get them to give their side of the story. You think that they've filed these cases and they have huge conflicts of interest. Can you explain some of that?
Sure. Well, here's what you have. You have Jay Clayton, who was the chairman of the SEC. His law firm represents Ethereum co-founders and competitors to Ripple. Bill Hinman worked for Simpson Thacher. It was a board member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And while he was working at the SEC, he was having private meetings with these Ethereum investors and collecting $15 million while working at the SEC from the firm that's on the board of the Ethereum Alliance. After all these private meetings, Charlie, he gives a speech that declares Ethereum not a security, and we found out that these Ethereum investors helped write the speech.
Are you going to depose them in your suit?
Well, the goal is to depose them. Right now, we're just seeking to go into court in the Southern District of New York and represent ourselves and defend what we own, because Ripple's not going to do it and the SEC's not going to do it.
All right. Now, here we go, folks. And look, this video will be longer than usual, but it's okay, especially if you've seen some of the videos, some of the video evidence. But I'm going to put, these are the greatest hits. These are the best. These are the ones everybody thought, wow. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to try to tell you who everybody is. First one, what you're looking at, this is Nancy Wotas, and I still don't know if I'm saying her name the right way. She's an attorney with the law firm Cooley LLP. That law firm was, and Nancy was a part, she was one of the law firms that was in the room with the SEC when all this was happening. She was in the venture capital working group that was headed up by Andreessen Horowitz. She was there. She knows exactly what happened. And she's one of the truth tellers. She tells it like it is. Listen to her. Wait, did I just... she's part of this clip. This is one of my compilations that went over really well.
When we look at Bitcoin, or if we look at Ether and the highly decentralized nature of the networks, we don't see a third-party promoter where applying the disclosure regime would make a lot of sense. So
there are two of them in existence right now, two of them that are sufficiently decentralized to be a base trust layer for applications for the planet, Ethereum and Bitcoin. In order to become a base trust layer, you need to issue a token broadly and equitably. You need to garner enough revenue so that you can build your project and continue to build it out, maintain it. You need to have a vibrant, large and growing community. And this is something that Bitcoin and Ethereum didn't have to deal with. You need to be regulatorily compliant.
If you have a fully functional network and you go ahead and you issue a token in that context, those early tokens will always be security tokens. And again, notwithstanding what the speech said. And we're going, well, tokens are mutable. They can change. And that's what Bill Hinman said. And it's like, well, we don't really believe that.
Right. So the whole premise of the Hinman speech was we get Ethereum and we get Bitcoin through the door by saying that it's sufficiently decentralized. Then we slam that door, and behind the scenes, the SEC's according to her, they're telling these attorneys in meetings that we don't really believe that decentralization gets you across that line. But it worked for Ethereum, right? Got it through the door. That was the whole point. Now we have this is the greatest SEC commissioner in the history of SEC commissioners. He is the official favorite SEC commissioner of the Digital Asset Investor channel. And here he goes.
In the nature of a cryptocurrency, the nature of the asset itself that gives you pause. It's the structure of the markets those assets are traded in rather than features of the asset itself.
Well, that's exactly right. That's very fair, Rob. And let me add one more. About crypto in particular, the other question we face that is very challenging is this a security, and to what degree is it a security under the securities laws? And I think, I'll be honest, I think my colleagues have done a great job about this. The director of our division of corporation finance is a man named Bill Hinman, who he gave a speech where he laid out, here's how we think about this, and gave a set of principles that the market can.
And by the way, he called it his personal opinion in a signed affidavit in court in the Ripple SEC case.
In understanding, here's how you know if you have a security or if you don't. Now, we haven't answered every particular question, but we've answered a lot. And I'll say one more thing about this. Early in this market, some lawyers out on the West Coast, in my view, got out ahead of their skis. They gave advice that these things were not securities. And candidly, my reaction as a lawyer and human was reading that advice. It was aggressive. As a result of that, the regulator has a job to do, which is to say to the bar, you know the principles here, you know the rules of the game, and you should apply them carefully and faithfully to the advice you're giving. And I think Hinman's speech and the chairman's work in this has moved the market forward a great deal.
So his speech moved the market forward a great deal, but he told everybody it was his personal opinion. And now this is Nancy Wotos at the Texas Bitcoin Conference 10/28/18. She's a member of the Venture Capital Working Group who submitted the safe harbor memo to Bill Hinman. And then this is Wendy Moore, partner at Perkins Coie. She's the one that asked, why isn't Ripple?
What's interesting is I don't think Ether is decentralized. I think it's fully functional, but I don't think it's decentralized. But the chairman, the division director said it's decentralized. So, hey, look at the metrics for Ether. And, hey, you do a little better than that, hey.
Then why isn't Ripple?
Yeah, and I wonder if they would have said that 3 years back. I mean, now they came back and said Ether is not, it's not a security, but, it's now. How about 3 years back? Would they have the same answer?
There's no question. Ethereum violated the law in the SEC's view when it issued its tokens. He said that in the speech, even though consensus says, oh, no, that's not what he said. That's what he said. But then he said, look, the securities laws really, it doesn't add anything now because Ether is decentralized. Again, no. Yeah, exactly. So it's a long process.
Okay, here we go. Next up. Now, this is the clip where Perkins Coie attorney Lowell Ness lets you know that he's the one that wrote the memo that inspired the Bill Hinman speech. Listen up.
Full decentralization, and that's what the Hinman speech, which tracks my memo pretty well, has.
By the way, this is the only clip that did not get over 50,000 views. I only put it in there because I believe this is one of the most important video clips that there is in this whole saga, because this is the clip where the attorney that wrote the memo, the safe harbor memo, and claims that, in his own words, that Bill Hinman's speech came from his memo mostly. He's telling you this is huge.
Full decentralization, and that's what the Hinman speech, which tracks my memo pretty well, has come out and said. And the Hinman speech has generally said, okay, decentralization, we think, gets both Bitcoin and Ether out of securities law status. And sort of the way I positioned it in the memo was, that's kind of like a bookend. That's like an easy case. Like if it's fully decentralized, there's no real issuer, so it's relatively easy to test for a fully decentralized token.
All right. And then 1 month after the Bill Hinman speech, you'll never guess who is testifying in front of Congress right beside the guy who just told you he wrote the memo.
But I think the Congress will be debating it. Probably not in this Congress, but I suspect in the next session, the next Congress, you all will be debating, should you give the CFTC additional authority, or maybe some other agency, maybe it would be the SEC, somebody else. But I think the CFTC, to have additional authorities about that underlying what I would call cash crypto market, it's 70% of the market. The SEC has securities, the CFTC had derivatives. I think you'll want to debate whether to do something about the underlying market. And lastly, I think you'll need to give them resources along with your friends over at the Appropriations Committee, because I think these agencies will need that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ginsler. Mr. Ness, 5 minutes.
Thank you all for inviting me to testify this morning.
I'm not going to play you all of his words. It's what's important to me is that I've learned in life, I've learned on this channel that there are no coincidences, and I don't think that's one either. Moving along, next up, one of my favorite clips, and I think one of the most popular for a reason. Who you're about to watch, this is Joseph Lubin on stage, and he is from Consensus, which is the company that is, the whole purpose of his company is to build on Ethereum, and he's one of the co-founders of Ethereum. And remember, we've shown on this channel where we've shown you the timeline where not just his company, Consensus, but also him, they were meeting all around these dates. They were meeting leading up to the Bill Hinman speech. They were meeting with them. Ripple was not meeting with them. They were meeting with them as well as a bunch of other people who are all tied to Ethereum in one way or another, whether they were investors or industry participants who were invested heavily in Ethereum. It's all there, folks. So here he is in his own words. Now, and remember, as you watch this, he's with Consensus. You can see video after video where he considers himself, he obviously considers himself he says he's not a competitor of Ripple, or Ethereum's not a competitor with XRP, but you can really feel he's literally gloating in some of these videos about the fact that XRP did not get a designation. And he's saying things that really do sound like somebody that knew more than they should know. Sometimes he almost talks like he's working for the SEC.
So we are big friends and fans of that organization. I think they're really understanding the space well. They are applying this thing called securities law to business in America and other places, as they have done for many decades successfully. They're identifying fraudulent projects. They're identifying obvious transgressions of securities law, but they haven't had a heavy touch, really. They've been gathering information. They've been taking some actions. They've been very clear that they understand there is this new construct, this protocol-based open platform.
So you think they get it?
Yeah, we believe they get it. They've introduced a new construct, decentralization, into their thinking. So in addition to the Howey test, they have this new construct that they're seeing certain things in. So they consider the Bitcoin network and token and issuance mechanisms. They consider the Ethereum network token and issuance mechanisms to be decentralized, and therefore no transactions involving those particular assets are considered to be transactions of securities. They have not said the same thing about other tokens, the Ripple token, for instance, and they were clear that they were going to come out with statements to sort of assess these different tokens, and I believe they've made all the statements about decentralization that they're going to make. And so Bill Hinman, Director of Corporate Finance, has been very clear about what you can do and what you can't do, and decentralization is a new element that they're working with.
Okay, so he thinks they've made all the statements they're going to make. And then here's another one of my favorites. Same guy, Joseph Lubin. And this is what I said, while the entire industry at Ripple were begging for clarity, this guy acts like he's an SEC commissioner. This cannot stand. Listen to what he says here.
I mean, you mentioned obviously Hinman's comments, but more broadly, do you feel like we're kind of at a place now where we're on the verge of getting some important clarity and regulations in the United States?
I think we've got a lot of pretty high quality clarity, in my opinion. The SEC has been very clear that, I guess Commissioner Clayton indicated that they wouldn't grandfather anybody, that big surprise, they're going to enforce securities law roughly like they have for many decades. And there will be lots of projects that sold securities, unregistered securities, to Americans that have received communications or will receive communications. My thesis is that the SEC doesn't want to kill blockchain for America, and so they have to be very careful, sort of have to thread the messaging needle, where they present some positive statements about Bitcoin, about Ethereum, about consumer utility tokens. So I think we're still in that phase where the SEC is communicating that we understand this is something new and it's going to be an incredibly valuable technology, but we also have rules, and all the projects out there need to pay attention to rules that are in place to preserve the sanctity of markets and consumer safety. So I'm pretty comfortable in this country and in various countries around the world that the securities law issues are pretty close to resolved. And I do think that there are going to be some bad times for some projects going forward, but I think that's going to be a very good thing. Getting clarity with respect to regulation is going to really kickstart the token ecosystem.
Well, it'd be very helpful to get rid of a lot of the scammy companies in the space. That would be great for everybody.
Yeah, so a lot of projects with naive technologists and naive entrepreneurs felt that this was very different. Maybe it's because it was in a global context. Maybe they were just excited about the potential of the technology. And I guess the barrier to entry was so low, you really could just cut and paste a token launch, and many fraudulent projects did that.
Okay, so just there's all kinds of stink coming off of that clip. I think that you can tell. And what about this one? Here's another one of the classics. This one weighs in at 77,000 views.
The project started in January 2014. We raised funds in a crowd sale and earned $18 million in that event. Applied that money to the development of the system, and July 30, 2015, Ethereum version 1 client was released.
Now, you also talked about initial coin offerings, or ICOs, which are ways of raising money using cryptocurrencies. Did you use a similar reasoning? You implied that most seem to be securities, ICOs, but some of them are not. Can you just show us what the difference is simply?
I wish we had a simple way to say this is in and this is out. As I mentioned, there are usually facts and circumstances tests. But a key factor is there a third-party promoter here who knows much more about the instrument than investors might? If that's the case, that's sort of an initial indicator that we might have a securities transaction. If people are buying it for investment and for a return and looking to that party for a return, then again, that's an indicia of a security. If you have, on the other hand, a token that's just used in the network for a good or service, and that's why people are buying it, and that service is available and up and running, not under development, then you may not have a security.
Okay, then we have this one weighing in. This is, again, my favorite SEC commissioner of all time. And this is weighing in at 65,000 views.
Even before I got on the commission, Jay Clayton stamped that out. And he came forward and said, if you want to raise money on an ICO basis, you're almost certainly going to have to comply with the securities laws, and here's how that looks. And then we started digging into the harder questions about how do securities laws apply, for example, to cryptocurrencies. Are they likely to be securities when they're first issued or when they're decentralized? Will there be a different view? And I think Bill Hinman gave a terrific speech last fall where he outlined some of those principles and did a good job guiding the market. Now, my guess is a lot of people on this call think the SEC could do even better in providing more guidance in this area. And let me say something about that. I hear you, and I don't think you're wrong, but it is very, very difficult for the government to keep up with a market that's changing at the speed that market is changing. And that's particularly true when we have some folks on the commission right now who are very hesitant about the use of guidance. In other words, we've got a lot of people who are not so sure that the staff should be providing informal views or guidance to folks in the way that's sometimes necessary to keep up with a fast-moving market. And Tom, let me promise you something. If we had passed a rule on cryptocurrency or on ICOs or what have you in 2017 or 2018, that rule would have been obsolete the day we voted on it, because that market is simply moving too fast for people to believe that that a rulemaking process could keep up with it. So my own view is that the SEC has done a very good job in that area, and that market now has a lot more depth and liquidity and price discovery than it did when I was on the commission. And I think that we'll begin to move in a direction where the commission will provide more clear views to the market about what that space should look like.
All right. And then remember, after you have heard that, remember, this providing guidance to the market, he specifically is saying that, well, they said that was nothing more than Bill Hinman's opinion. That's what they said all along. Okay, and then there's this. He says it in another way.
I've had many folks come to me since I took office at the SEC and say, Commissioner Jackson, you should adopt a rule regarding ICOs, regarding crypto. And I say to them, every time I see them, what would that rule look like today? And they describe it. And I say, okay, in the very best case, I can get from start to finish on that rule in 14, 15 months. Can you assure me that in 14 months this will be the right rule? Can you assure me that in 14 weeks it will be the right rule? And the answer is no. That means that from time to time, the SEC does its best work, not through the cumbersome and formal rulemaking process, but instead by talking to the marketplace. It's a dirty word in Washington right now, but we do this thing that I, as a practicing lawyer, when I was at Wachtell Lipton for some time, always valued very much, which was the ability to get guidance from the staff about what their expectations are and why. That process enables us to talk to the market, hear from solid practitioners who are developing the most cutting-edge solutions to business problems, and give them feedback about the questions that might arise under the securities laws as a consequence of those choices. I think that so far, it is fair to say our efforts in the cryptocurrency space, in the ICO space, and the most cutting-edge challenges we face have been by going this route. A case-by-case, careful determination through communications with industry about what we're comfortable with and where we would have questions. And I actually think it has so far been one of the finest moments under my terrific chairman, Jay Clayton, because we have taken a measured, balanced, careful approach that reflects what we do well, which is to talk to the market about what's happening. I don't yet have the sense that the market is in a position where we could pursue a cumbersome rulemaking and be confident that we would be making a rule that would make long-run sense for the market in many of the areas you talked about today. And what we cannot do, and I think must not do, is develop rules on these cutting-edge subjects that we've been discussing all day today.
All right. And then there's this. Now, in this clip, you have Brad Garlinghouse right here, and you've got Joseph Lubin right here. Watch this. This is weighing in at 57,000 views.
Joe, it's been said that you are one of the biggest Ethereum holders.
It has been said. I've heard that. Yeah.
Yes.
Based on no data.
How do you go about managing your treasury within Consensus and your own personal one?
I guess no comment. So we personally, in terms of Consensus, we are a small fraction of the Ethereum asset and all the assets on the Ethereum platform. And we manage our treasury like a company would manage its treasury.
I find it interesting that Ripple is attacked for being transparent. Because we are very proactive, and we put actually the next XRP markets report, which we do quarterly, will come out sometime at the end of this week. But because we share that information, then we're attacked for it. Yet other platforms don't share that information, and so they are.
Exactly. Have you noticed that Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson are being raked over the coals for what they sold and all this type of stuff? Nobody even knows what Joseph Lubin holds. Nobody's even looking at what this guy holds or has sold or anything else. I mean, there's absolutely been no scrutiny of this guy, and not just him, but what about the other people that... What about the people... What about this? The other day I played you a video where Joseph Lubin himself said that JP Morgan was involved in Ethereum even before they issued Ethereum, the token. What did JP Morgan own? What do they own now, Ethereum-wise? Are you telling me that JP Morgan did not participate in Ethereum, did not buy any of the Ethereum? Or how about JP Morgan executives? Did any of them buy Ethereum? Did any of the people that were affiliated with them buy Ethereum before that ICO? What was their... Why isn't someone looking at that? Excuse me.
From those same critiques and criticisms. I think in the dictionary that's called hypocrisy. I'm not 100% sure, but it's close.
Is there any plan for greater transparency within Consensus in terms of how it deploys its Ethereum?
Internally, sure.
In other words, no.
You know, we're a private company, and we
Ripple's
are
a private company too.
Absolutely. And transparency is important to us. But we also have to be strategic about information that we release. And with respect to those sorts of issues, I haven't really thought too much about whether we need to disclose.
Ethereum started with a pre-sale and an ICO, which we'll be talking about 72 million Ethereum. Vitalik wanted to raise money. He was maybe 19 years old. He looped in with a venture capitalist from Canada, Joe Lubin, who now runs Consensus. Lubin took about 10% or 9.5% of the offering. They put 9.5% in a foundation called the Ethereum Foundation, and the other 80% was sold to the public for $18 million.
Gary Gensler knows all about what Joe Lubin took, what he owns. He knows the percentages. Why is he not looking at what this guy did? That's a question for everybody out there. Now, here's our old buddy Robert Jackson again, another classic.
Whole thing, I think our director of corporation finance, Bill Hinman, gave a speech about a year and a half ago that describes this. You might know the speech I have in mind. That's it. So the question is, where do we draw that line? And how we test and the guidance we put out in this area has informed that difference. Now, one more thing. You mentioned cryptocurrency. What's important about that is to realize that the way that cryptocurrency works, when it is, and this is what Bill Hinman's speech says, so I'm not adding too much, depends fundamentally on how centralized or decentralized the underlying network is that supports that currency. And that's also true in the ICO context. Bill has said a lot about that, about ways that practitioners can look in that area and get a sense for whether or not we should think of that as a security. And I point people to that speech. Do you think we've been clear enough about that? Yeah. Yeah, I expected you to say that. Now let me ask you this. No, seriously. I've heard that a lot. What could we do that would be more clear? I want to be clear because a lot of people have come in and asked us for more guidance on this. And it's not that we don't want to be, I won't speak for my colleagues, not that I don't want to be responsive. It's that I worry that if we make a rule today, it will make a lot less sense to the marketplace in 6 months in this space. Do you see what I'm worried about? And better for worse, the machinery of the bureaucracy of the US government works in a fashion where if I were to pitch a rule and know exactly what it was, exactly what we, if you and I could get a beer and agree what the rule should be, by the time it became law, it'd be a year later. And by that time, the ground will have moved underneath us. So if you sense, at least from my point of view, wanting to give this some time to figure out and do it by guidance as opposed to rule, that's what's driving us.
All right, and then we have this. This one is a classic coming in at 143.1 thousand views. Gary Gensler and Tim Draper.
You mentioned Jamie Dimon, so let's bring it back to Jamie and JP Morgan. What do you think is going to be the thing that they will have to change the most or lose market share and somebody else is going to do better, faster, serve their clients better than JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs?
You can just hear the bankers panicking right now.
But what
feel the panic in their voices. But here's what always happens. The first thing that happens is they try to go, oh, it's nothing. And they did that. I mean, that's with every new industry, every new technology comes along, the powers that be, the incumbents, the status quo, all say, it's nothing. Don't ignore the man behind the curtain. This is nothing. And then all of a sudden it's too big to get in there. They're going, oh my God, I got to face this thing.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to stop that. Here.
And with every new industry, every new technology comes along, the powers that be, the incumbents, the status quo, all say, it's nothing. don't ignore the man behind the curtain. This is nothing. And then all of a sudden it's too big to get in there. You know, they're going, oh my God, I got to face this thing. And then they all line up and they wrap their arms together and they say, we're not letting this happen. And then it keeps going. And then they say, okay, well, let's sue them. Or let's go get the government.
There's another thing they do. They adopt the technology. I think.
No, that's at the end.
They will adopt this technology.
No, this is the last thing they do. No,
it's like
it's after the press planting. They plant the press stories. They put out lawsuits. They create as much of a fuss as possible. They try to get their government friends involved. And then they go, oh, God, this thing's happening.
All right, and then we're going to show you this. Now, this is the classic. This is when we found the old video from Charles Gasparino from back on May 10th of 2018, where he was being informed about the Brooklyn project, and he said someone named Andy told him that it was an SEC-sanctioned project, and the Brooklyn project was started by Consensus, which is Joseph Lubin's company. Listen to this one.
It's somewhat dispersed. What we can tell you now, because I've been spending a lot of time talking to major players in the cryptocurrency, in the blockchain industry, is like they are starting to come together with a consensus, trying to build together an organizational roots where they can deal with the growing regulation, which is coming from the SEC mainly, where they consider anything that's traded inside a blockchain to be a currency under their oversight. So what we do know, and like I said, been doing a lot of reporting about this, blockchain and cryptocurrency industry is looking to establish a self-regulatory organization along the lines of like NASDAQ and the NYSE.
To give it legitimacy.
Give it legitimacy and to give it set of parameters and best practices, and also to deal with the regulators, the top regulators, the SEC. Obviously, this comes amid increased scrutiny by the SEC, and the SEC launched a massive crackdown on everything blockchain, crypto-oriented. There's going to be a lot of cases coming out of here. But here's what we understand, which is interesting. This self-regulatory agency could be put through, and I think this is the biggest effort yet, where they have major white shoe law firms they've hired, something known as the Brooklyn Project. They're going to publish best practices and seek government regulation at some point as an SRO, as something along the lines of the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. And it's created by two, I would say, industry leaders, a guy named Joe Lubin, Andrew Keys. They're part of something known as Ethereum and Consensus. These are big cryptocurrency blockchain companies. Mm-hmm. They are working on this through this thing known as the Brooklyn Project. They have a lot of sources and friends on Wall Street. This, to me, will be the way that cryptocurrency and blockchain, the technology, gets beyond the sewage rationale. They are going to lead the effort to essentially systematize and rationalize and create a consumer protection organization with blockchain and cryptocurrency, and this is the key thing, because they are working, from what I understand, with the SEC, the CFTC on this, a self-regulatory organization, which will differentiate between stuff that can be regulated as securities, like Bitcoin, and other stuff that you have through blockchain, like computer technology.
All right, so that video right there, once Charles Gasparino knew about it and remembered all of this, that's when he got interested in this case, and that is how we now are seeing him reporting on this case, which is awesome. And then finally, this is the final video that had received over 50,000 views, and this is Hester Pierce herself back at September 2nd or so, and this is what she said.
One of my particular concerns is that I think a lot of people are innovating in areas outside of the security space precisely because we haven't provided the clarity we should be providing.
Yeah, you've been on this point for a while, and I think it's a very strong one. The chairman, in recent comments about, I think a couple of weeks ago, took issue with the idea that the SEC has not been forthcoming, and that they've been very clear on what their position is on, largely through some of the commentary that's happened since the ICO boom. But you're saying it seems not enough. Can you elaborate? What more should the SEC be doing in terms of guidelines and clarity?
Well, one area where the chair and I think don't see eye to eye is the lack of clarity around when something is or is not a security, and what actually is the security at issue when we're talking about these token offerings. So I do think that we could provide some more clarity in that space.
All right, so there you go. One of the commissioners thinks he's wrong. I want to remind everybody, and I put this link at the very top of the description of this video. If you don't have a virtual private network yet, you need to make sure you do. This is Pure VPN, and there's a link to it in the top of the description. Access any crypto platforms securely. Your secure access to online crypto trading platforms starts here, backed by the state-of-the-art encryption. Evade regional limitation and restrictions. Defend against MITM attacks. Leaves no digital traces of your identity. Dedicated IP to avoid getting banned from exchanges. Try now for 99 cents. I think it's like a 7-day trial or something for 99 cents. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that this is the SEC and Ethereum versus Ripple, XRP, and crypto innovation greatest hits. Thank you for